Coming up on Influencing Entrepreneurs.
I was sentenced to do my time at Eglin Federal Prison Camp, and I was on a hard labor crew, Pappy's Ditch Bitches. So I was weed whacking with Jitterbug, Fat, Silk, and Snake, and me. And
I got to ask, do you have a prison name or?
You know, I was pretty much just Jeff.
This season of Influencing Entrepreneurs is brought to you by the Entrepreneurs Organization of Charlotte and Spherical Media.
After years of teaching entrepreneurship and consulting business owners, I realized that true knowledge comes from the wins and losses of those entrepreneurs. These are the stories of those business leaders. I'm Cassmer Ward, and this is Influencing Entrepreneurs. You are sentenced to 13 months, no restitution. So they're claiming some sort of conspiracy, but they're not asking for any monetary fine.
No.
You take a deal to do 13 months rather than fight the charge.
I did, just to set the record straight, I had to pay a fine.
A fine.
On that $82,000, they had triple damages, so I paid a $240 fine. Oh. $240,000 fine.
Wow, okay.
Which wasn't that material to me at the point in time.
And that's, you're living well at that point, but now you're getting ready to head into prison for 13 months.
Right.
What is that first day like?
I had no idea what to expect. And, I never had any friends who went to prison. I didn't know anyone that went to prison.
You got no context, just what we've seen on TV at that point.
Right. So I was sentenced to do my time at Eglin Federal Prison Camp. That was an Air Force base in Destin, Florida. Paula and some good friends drove me. I self-reported. Ruth, who I was working for, I was then the interim president and chief operating officer, but I worked till about 2 days before I had to report to prison.
Were they understanding about this?
They did their own investigation.
Okay.
And felt, I got a really bad deal. They were very supportive during the whole time. Paula, drove me there. I dropped me off at the front of the Air Force base, and like that, my life changed. I was in the media a lot, so the guards knew I was coming. And I was shocked because, mostly Hispanic and African American drug dealers in a federal prison. I was in a camp, which meant you weren't in a cell, you were in a cubicle, 7x7, 49 square feet, 2 men to a cube. And I was on a hard labor crew, Pappy's Ditch Bitches. So I was weed whacking with Jitterbug, Fat, Silk, and Snake, and me.
Okay.
And
I got to ask, do you have a prison name or?
I was pretty much just Jeff.
Just Jeff. You look like a Jeff.
Yeah, so, I was I was older than most of the guys there. It was maybe 10% white collar guys, but for the most part, when Lynn Bias overdosed on crack, that kind of flooded the system with people selling crack, and they got incredibly harsh sentences. They'd work their way down from a high to, in the last 7 years of their sentence, to a camp. So the typical person I met there was someone involved in selling drugs,
right?
And in a lot of cases, crack.
I'm imagining that completely changes your concept of whether it's the prison system, the criminal justice system.
I think the whole notion of the disparity in sentences between cocaine and crack was incredibly racist, and you saw these young African-American guys and Hispanics with incredibly harsh sentences. 25 years is not a joke. Right. With good time, they got it down to 22 and a half years.
So, and they didn't have D&O insurance. They didn't have their current employer doing an additional background check or anything to minimize any of that. So how do you fit into this community?
Well, the very first day, black drug dealer, I assume, asked me to go to church with him because I reported December 30th. So there was a New Year's Eve service the next day. He's a very nice guy, and it was more of a Pentecostal worship service. And he gave me some tennis shoes. He was nice to me. When everyone's in prison khaki, it breaks down a lot of barriers. Yeah. The language is much fouler than the MF word is used pretty much all the time. Okay.
So, as a verb, a noun, an adjective.
Pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of heartache, these are incredibly harsh sentences. I was blessed. I didn't have restitution. I had financial resources so Paula could send me money. She visited twice a month, once a month with the kids.
Which I'm sure that was hard.
Yeah, that's an emotional thing,
Yeah.
but at least I had visits. I mean, a lot of people there, their moms after 20 years, you're not on the radar screen anymore. So I have a sensitivity to that, and I care about prison reform.
You have a wonderful, to this day, relationship with your wife. It puts strain on it.
I think Paula and I've never dated another person. Well, I shouldn't say that. Since the very first day of college, that was at 1975. Paula and I got married our senior year in 1978, and so she didn't sign up for the financial success we had, and then the fall from grace, but Paula was right there with me. So one of the life lessons is when we wrap up is marrying well is a good thing.
And you definitely married well.
I married very well. She's very supportive. Stood by me the entire time.
So you spend 13 months to the day?
306 days. I got there. There's some politics too. The judge gave me 13 months. So the good time credit would actually knock it down to 306
So about
days.
10 months.
Yeah, 10 months.
10 months. I got to imagine coming out 10 months later, day one might be almost as scary as going into prison.
I went to a halfway house in the 9th Ward of in New Orleans there. And that was pretty rough neighborhood, the 9th Ward. So I spent 2 weeks in the halfway house. Ruth's Chris hired me back as a prep cook.
Okay.
I left as president, came back as a prep cook.
It really, at this point, you've probably had so many awakenings. You're probably also grateful to be able to go in as prep cook.
Yes. And so let me explain that. While I was locked up, the board of directors met and they decided to award my wife the franchise rights to Ruth's Chris, which they hadn't done to anyone.
There'd never been a franchisor.
Well, but it had been a long period of time.
Okay.
It was probably 15 years between when the last person was awarded a franchise and then they gave it to Paula.
Okay.
So that was pretty nice.
Right.
My job at Ruth's was to position the company to go public. When I got the felony conviction, I couldn't do that. The company wanted to stand by me. So the chairman, I think, orchestrated a franchise for Paula and me in Charlotte, North Carolina.
How is it starting to build that franchise?
Well, I was, a good financial person, decent executive, but restaurateur. I knew the numbers, but I didn't really, wasn't a great cook or anything.
Right.
So
you were a prep cook, so you had some experience.
I had some prep cook. I had on the cook line, but I was able to hire good people around me, and we took over a restaurant in South Park that was formerly Gaetano's, converted it to Ruth's Chris, opened, and of course there's trials anytime you open a business, but got that open. The restaurant became very successful. And they gave us the rights to 2 franchises, and we had an opportunity to buy the land at 3rd and Tryon. So we purchased that land and built a ground-up Ruth's Chris at 3rd and Tryon.
You went from not even being a restaurateur to then also starting your own restaurant and your own brand,
Right.
Napa on Providence.
Right. They grew our Ruth's brands to 4 units, and I had some incredible partners along the way that stood by me. I mean, they recognized the value of a Ruth's Chris franchise. And while Paula and I had a decent amount of money, we really needed some strong financial partners because the Uptown project was $7 million. The Savannah project was $7 million, which we borrowed 100% of the money for that. But the first restaurant opened in 2005. The 4th Ruth's Chris opened in 2010. Recession had occurred, the Great Recession, 2008, 2009. Paula said, we've got to diversify, Jeff. Right. We can't keep doing these upscale steakhouses. Providence Cafe came to our attention over there by Queens College. And we really like Napa Valley and kind of the food and that experience. So we came up with this Napa on Providence concept. And that restaurant opened in December of 2012, became very successful, which we opened another Napa 3 years ago in Fort Mill called Napa Kingsley.
The plan is to continue to develop this.
We'd like to create a brand that's been the two restaurants have done well financially, and we think we've got something unique. So we're working on more Napas right now. We also are partners in the Pump House in Rock Hill, and then recently the Drift will be opening in a few
And this is Drift, from everything I've heard, is extremely impressive.
Yeah, it's a very big project. Paula and I are the operating partners, and we get a management fee. Our company does for overseeing things. We're definitely the minority partners, but three good friends and individuals I trust implicitly asked us in this deal. Basically, the guys from the Pump House that I'm in business with, and you'll be reading a lot about the Drift here in the next few weeks.
Now, when you were in the public accounting, in the rent to own business, probably didn't see those connecting, didn't see that leading to restaurateur. Does it stop at restaurateur, or is there another industry?
I think, I'm 64 now, and I love I like the high end side of the restaurant business. I think hospitality suits me well, and we provide exceptional experiences, and there's an art side to it with beautiful food and cocktails and wine, and so that's my niche. I like that.
Okay. So you found your space. You've come through everything. Is there something of that stigma of being a convicted felon that sits with you to this day? Or is there anything moving past that?
I owned it. Okay. So whenever I would go into a meeting with a banker or a potential partner, I would open up and say, you should know I'm a convicted felon. Some people say that's leading with your chin, and
right.
But so for anybody that has something in their past that they don't want to surprise anyone with, I was very open about that. A year and a half ago, I was blessed with a presidential pardon from Donald Trump. It came out of nowhere, and it certainly was a wonderful feeling. He only gave, I believe, around 70 pardons.
Is this something you worked towards, or is it just something that...
One of my partners in Asheville mentioned that it might be a possibility about a month before the inauguration. So I filled out the paperwork and forwarded it to John. And then when the riots occurred, if you remember, about 2 weeks before the inauguration, there were terrible riots in the Capitol. And I prayed about it, but I really didn't have any expectation. My life's fine, and with or without the pardon.
But you were doing it more for a cleansing or a peace of mind.
Yeah, it's a nice thing to have a pardon, and I can own a gun.
Right.
I could travel to Canada. I wrote a nice letter to President Trump and asked him to join me for dinner with his wife, but I haven't heard anything back yet.
What, without the term convicted felon brandished over, now kind of exonerated. I don't know if that's the right term, but that convicted felon status had you learn a whole lot.
Yeah.
What was one of the biggest takeaways that you said, now that I know what I know, I want to take that forward and do good with it?
When I speak to people, I kind of break it into, there's a spiritual component, there's a business component, things I could have done better in business, things that I've done right in business now to enable all the success that we've had. I try not to judge people now. Okay, I learned that. Having a great partners, being properly capitalized, managing growth, being disciplined spiritually. Okay, not trying to be self-sufficient, trusting in the Lord. There's a lot of things that go into my story and how it's ended. So all those are important things that merit discussion.
And with that, where does that take where you and your wife are together after you've been through hell and high water.
Well, the kids have turned out great. Okay. And Paula and I have, we're married almost 44 years now.
That's excellent.
We're thinking about how does this all end? And she's a little more inclined to retire. I'm focused on where I'm growing the Napa brand, but it's a great marriage partnership. And I'm blessed in that way.
Is there, now that you've rebuilt your career, is there any knowledge you take from being back in the position of line cook that gives you better foresight into how you manage your companies?
Number one, I know a lot of people that are incarcerated are good people. They made a poor choice. Maybe they got a bad deal. So in our company, they call them Conway's convicts, but you'll see people that I don't judge, till I really get to know the man or woman. I also think that trying to do things on our own strength, I think a lot of this happened to me because I tended to be a self-sufficient person. So I've learned not to rely on my own strength, I pray a lot for discernment. We all have to make very hard decisions in business and life as leaders. So prayer for discernment's important to me.
Do you still keep in touch with, was it the ditch bitches?
Yeah. So I have several friends that I've stayed in touch with over the years that, I was incarcerated with. And I have many friends now that we've hired over the last 15 years or so that they've been incarcerated. They're good friends. I like them.
Well, to hear that you were able to take those hard life lessons, look back at it introspectively, and also still serve those that were in your life says a whole lot about you as a person.
If I can add one thing, I got a lot of unconditional love. I mean, a lot of people thought I got a really bad deal, but those relationships I had, whether it was high school, college, professional, business, it's really important to build good relationships and family that were there for you when the times get tough, because you need those people in your lives. So a lot of my success or comeback story is due to many others that stepped up for me.
Well, I'm grateful to have had this experience and, friendship with you and you sharing your story. So thank you so much for being here.
Okay. My pleasure.
Influencing Entrepreneurs is brought to you by the Entrepreneurs Organization of Charlotte and Spherical Media. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Nexagy Education or visit CassmerWard.com to catch up on previous episodes.